Is there an old, new running back in the AFC East that you want to target? How do you handle the Seahawks this year with the same quarterback, but new coaching staff? And who is the sleeper free agent running back that you need to be overdrafting this month? Plus, the 2023 FFPC Never-Too-Early Best Ball Tournament 14th place finisher Rick Brinson picks our minds, and we pick his, on Rachaad White, Trey Palmer, and much more. We've got a great show for you. Ferrell Elliott is here. I'm Eric Balkman. Stick around. Your high-stakes fantasy football hour starts right now.
Can't stand the pressure. I've seen greater men than these lessons.
Broadcast live and heard around the world, you are now watching the most entertaining hour of radio on the planet. Welcome to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com with your hosts Eric Balkman and Ferrell Elliott. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is your home for analysis from the best players in the world. And now, because no one else was available, here are Eric Balkman and Ferrell Elliott.
Solace in the scripture. Are we not all our father's sons? I became a man. Nobody ever told me what a man was.
Welcome into the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to all the Ferrelliacs and Balkamaniacs. I am your host, Eric Balkman, slightly above average, by the way. Here to hang out with you tonight for the next hour. Greetings and salutations to all of you. It's the latest episode of the hsffhour presented by the Fantasy Football Players Championship, myffpc.com. Ferrell Elliott, the definitive commissioner of fantasy football, will be joining us shortly. Coming up on tonight's show, Ferrell and I are going to list the reasons why you need to be zeroing in on Brandon Ayuk, why you need to target Travis Kelce, and much more. Plus, the 2023 FFPC Never-Too-Early Best Ball Tournament 14th place finisher Rick Brinson talks a little bit about Nico Collins, Aaron Jones, and much more tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, if you did not see the FFPC mailer today, there was huge news. For the first time ever, and this is, 3 months, something like that in advance, than we have ever done it before. The 2024 FantasyPros Championship launches on Tuesday, February 20th. We are just 4 days away from you beginning your quest for a $1 million grand prize. It is a $6 million prize pool. You can play in that. Drafts are going on daily in that. We have a ton of slow drafts going off. I think several slow drafts have already filled up that are obviously going off on the 20th as well. You can play in that at myffpc.com. myffpc.com is where to go for that $1 million grand prize, and you can start playing for it on Tuesday. That's pretty awesome. Now, if you don't want to do that, if you want to play in the Never-Too-Early tournament, which those registrations will cut off prior to the start of the NFL draft, do that now, myffpc.com. Never-Too-Early Best Ball Tournament, Never-Too-Early Best Ball Superflex Tournament. They'll run up until the start of the NFL draft. April 25th is when registration will cut off. Best ball slim rules, no kickers, no defenses, 20 rounds for the draft, 14-week regular season. Playoffs will go from weeks 15 through 17 and will crown a champion after week 17. Drafts are available daily, 30-second, 60-second, 2-hour, and 6-hour clock. You can take your shot at a $25,000 grand prize with a $125 entry fee in the standard Never-Too-Early Best Ball Tournament. You can also play for a $10,000 grand prize with just a $35 entry fee in the Superflex Never-Too-Early Best Ball Tournament. That is where you want to go. myffpc.com, myffpc.com. And while you're there, check out the Dynasty Orphans that we have for sale. Some as little as $1. Plenty of teams have had their entry fees for 2024 lowered to $1. $50, $100, like you can get crazy deals. I found out from Dave the Dizzle Gerzak that we have sold more Dynasty Orphans up until this point. It's the most we've ever sold, well over 3,000. The most we've ever sold up until this point in the season. And I think the price has something to do with that. So if you want to cash in on these prices, which quite frankly are probably only going to go up from here, you can get some great deals on Dynasty Orphans at myffpc.com. That's myffpc.com. And don't forget to check out the Dynasty Depot, dynastydepot.com, your home for buying, selling, bidding, and dominating FFPC Dynasty Leagues. Nelson Verbit, who is going to be a guest on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Show coming up next month, on the Better Sports Network. Can't wait to talk to him about that. But that is the place you want to go if you are an FFPC Dynasty owner. You're doing yourself a disservice if you are not a member over there. DynastyDepot.com, myffpc.com is where to go to pick up those Dynasty Orphans. Remember to like, subscribe, comment, share, and get notified every time we go live here like we are doing tonight. We'll go live again next Thursday. More on that in the show. Let's bring in the co-host with the most. He is the definitive commissioner of fantasy football. You follow him on the X at jferrellelliott. Welcome in the king of Caesars Southern Indiana this past weekend, Ferrell Elliott. Ferrell, welcome in, man. How was Caesars for the Super Bowl? You guys must have had a great time. I heard nothing but rave reviews.
Oh, that's very cool, Balky. We and say hello to Dominic, the first in the room tonight. Colin Hoffman's back too. I wish you and those guys had been here. We had a blast, and you know the game could not have been any better. And we had guys that had basically given up on their various selections in the sports book, who as the clock went to zero and overtime got added to the board, they experienced new life, a rejuvenation, so to speak. But the drafting aspect of it was very impressive. I got a very good feel for the rookies, some which consistently went off the board. I thought in the first drafting that some of the rookies were coming off the board early, but they stayed consistent and early. And it made you could really tell that the players came in well prepared for 2024. So, you know, that's where everybody's mindset was, and that's where it continues to be.
I think that and I drafted on Saturday night prior to the Super Bowl in the KFFSC. And one of the things I heard from Dave the Dizzle Gerzak and the Real Leroy, who were drafting live at Caesars Southern Indiana, said you wouldn't believe how high Marvin Harrison is going. Now, Ferrell, Marvin Harrison in the FFPC Never-Too-Early Best Ball Tournament. Shout out to Fantasy Mojo at Fantasy Mojo on X, fantasymojo.com. If you're playing in the FFPC, you need to check him out and make sure you get a membership there. It is well worth it. I was looking at him as a mid-third round pick, which struck me as high. But in the KFFSC, where you have to start 3 receivers, he was going at the end of the second, early third round. And I got to believe our good buddy Scott Connor from Dynasty League Football, from Dynasty, Debbie Dynasty Fantasy Football Factory, everything he's doing, chasing the helmet. He had to be a big guy, him and Jay Reed, drafting Marvin Harrison Jr. at the end of the second round. They love him.
Yes, they did. And also we have one drafter from the great state of Ohio, formerly, and who joined us in the draft. And he shouted out Marvin Harrison's selection midway through the first round. So, you know, he was making a point, and he certainly got his guy. But, yeah, Marvin Harrison, without knowing our landing spot, Marvin Harrison went in front of a lot of receivers that I might have rather had some of those other guys. But you know what? We love when drafters come here and get their guys. And Marvin Harrison was definitely a guy targeted by everyone.
January and February are all about getting your guys. This is the one time where, you know, because the ADP is very fluid, it's not set. Whoever you want, you can get right now. That's the beauty of drafting right now. And I love it. I absolutely love it. It's not all about rookies this time of year. There's some free agents. There's some players that are coming off bad years. There are players coming off good years that we need to kind of figure out. And a player that's coming off a bad year, a proven player that is coming off a bad year, resides in New England. He is Ramondre Stevenson, and he told the Boston Globe earlier this week, Ferrell, that he wants to be the featured back for the New England Patriots in 2024. Now, as a reminder, last season, he only played in 12 games, 857 yards from scrimmage, just 4 touchdowns. He was healthy for the first 13 weeks of the season, and quite frankly, he was the lead back for those 13 weeks. 63% of the team snaps is when he was out on the field, 29% opportunity share. Now he is coming up in the final year of his rookie deal. More than 1,400 plus yards in 2022. Let's not forget that. He is looking to get up into that neighborhood in 2024. 4.4 yards per touch last year, a career low 4.0 yards per carry. I got to believe that because there's a new coach there in Gerard Mayo, no Bill Belichick, it's going to come down to him and the GM to figure out what they're going to be doing at running back here, to figure out what Stevenson is going to be doing in 2024. It sounds like, based on the tea leaves there, that Ezekiel Elliott will not be coming back in 2024 for the New England Patriots, which means that it should be wheels up for Ramondre Stevenson. As I look at the mojo on him, and I'm looking specifically at the Never-Too-Early ADP for the FFPC. If you look at where he has been going so far with draft starting, with about a month now, we've got about a month worth of data with the FFPC Never-Too-Early. Ramondre Stevenson, running back 18, Ferrell, he has fallen until the middle of the 6th round, going behind the likes of Alvin Kamara and Tyjae Spears, going just ahead of Aaron Jones and Tony Pollard. Is that a spot that you want to be in business with Ramondre Stevenson going forward?
Oh, that's a wonderful buy, Balky. And this player is an example of what happens. And I think you could take an X through the entire year for New England. Nothing worked there. And so why would we expect Stevenson to be his usual self? He still put up a good effort and good numbers within the concept of that offense, which struggled all year long. And in many games were out of the game. I don't really see any reason why this terrific running back should be in the 6th round. But, man, that's a good place to get him if you're a Stevenson fan. And I don't recall where he was last year, but I think when we were in Planet Hollywood, he was late in the 3rd round. Mm-hmm. And if he had played if he had played the entire season there, he probably would have had numbers to marginally justify that draft position. I'm big on Stevenson, and in the 6th round, I'm big as I've ever been.
So you're not necessarily concerned about New England bringing in a 1B back, or quite frankly, maybe a 1A back? Like this, for you, it sounds like Stevenson is where you want to go in New England this year. And the fact that you get him in the mid-6th round, it's all worthwhile for you.
He would have to come through free agency or a very, very high draft pick, and I don't think that's going to happen. Sure, they'll bring in backs. They'll bring in complementary players. Maybe they'll even get successful and do some fantastic scouting, and in the 7th round, take this year's version of Isaiah Pacheco. But at the end of the day, football players go to camp every year to compete. They compete with themselves first, and they compete with the other players on the roster. This player's earned his opportunity to be the guy in New England, and no matter what the new guys come in and do, they've got a lot to correct. Stevenson's not the place they should start correcting.
Yeah, no, and I get it. And the fact that he is going basically not quite, but pretty close to 3 rounds later than where he was last year, you have a lot more margin for error. And I would not necessarily be super concerned. There's other running backs, and we'll get into them later on in the show. There's other running backs that I'm more concerned about those teams bringing in competition to those players. I am not necessarily as concerned with Ramondre Stevenson going forward, especially as far as 2024 is concerned. Ferrell, let's get into Seattle and the Seahawks and the news that came out from Adam Schefter this week. Geno Smith is going to be remaining on Seattle's roster for 2024. His fully guaranteed salary for a starting quarterback in the NFL, $12.7 million. What a bargain, which is insane. Now, Seattle, if they would have cut him, it would have been a dead cap hit of nearly $18 million. Schefter said, and I'm going to quote him here, "The Seahawks believe that in today's market with salary soaring for starting quarterbacks, the right decision was to pay the money." Now, ironically, 4th season with the Seahawks in 2023, Smith threw for exactly the same amount of yardage as he did in 2022 when everybody's loving him. The difference in 2022, he threw for 2 more interceptions, but 10 more touchdowns. He is going to have a new head coach this year in Mike McDonald, new offensive coordinator in Ryan Grubb, who comes from Washington and was known for how much he loved to pass the ball here. Ferrell, I'm going to look at the Never-Too-Early data here right now for Geno Smith. As far as quarterbacks go, he is currently going as the 25th quarterback going off the board. Drake May, Baker Mayfield, Aaron Rodgers, Matthew Stafford, all going off the board before him. The fact that he is going to come back to Seattle this year in an offense that has a coordinator that loves to throw the ball, featuring DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and Jackson Smith-Njigba. I think he is severely being underrated by these never-too-early drafters. How do you see it?
He's been severely underrated his entire career. And if you want to look at his numbers, Bulky, you did the listeners and all the FFPC players a favor by shining the light on 22. And what you got to remember about 23, he was in miserable physical condition, but he answered the bell regularly. He was hurting. He played, and without complaint, he played. And it was magical performance by the staff there to get him on the field some of the games. So he's a player that everyone in the league roots for. We've talked about that before. His $12.7 million. I wonder how many years he had to play in the league to equal that before he got to this contract. This is a very cleverly negotiated contract on the agent side. I'll give these guys credit for getting this put together. He's there, and he is a good piece of their offense. And would you say you gave the guys that are going before him, is Will Levis going after him?
He's got to be. I'm going to look it up right now just to confirm, but I got to believe he is.
I'm curious as who the 3 or 4 guys are that are going after him in the Never-Too-Early.
Okay, so right now, Will Levis he's one of the 3 guys that are going after Geno Smith. Geno Smith, 1406 right now as quarterback 25. Derek Carr goes a half round later as quarterback 26 at the end of the 14th. Then you have Russell Wilson at the start of the 16th round. And then the third guy going right after Geno Smith this year is indeed Will Levis, quarterback 28 at the 1606, slightly ahead of last year's number 1 pick, Bryce Young from Carolina.
I think if you take Levis, if you take Geno, based on what might happen with the transfer of the contract, if you take Russell Wilson, you've got 3 guys there that all could be very, very, very potential bargains at this draft spot.
And are we sure, this is a sidebar, are we sure that Wilson is not going to be in Denver this year? Because I'm starting to have second thoughts.
We're not sure of anything when it comes to Wilson.
Okay.
But,
all right.
But we can speculate about everything.
Right. Sure of nothing, speculating about everything. The high stakes fantasy football hour. We have Rick Brinson warming up on the sideline, ready to come in here. Before we get to him and the 14th place finisher in the FFPC Never-Too-Early Best Ball Tournament, I want to talk about Tony Pollard here briefly. Saad Youssef, who covers the Cowboys for The Athletics, said that the Cowboys should not rule out re-signing Pollard for 2024. He is going to be 27 years old this season. Obviously a bad year for Pollard this past year. He broke his leg in January 2023, and he actually told some reporters that he didn't feel 100% until December this past year from that leg injury. So Youssef, who wrote this for The Athletic, the lesson that we learned from this past season is not that Pollard is not a quality NFL back. It's the fact that he can't be relied on to be the workhorse. The Cowboys could bring Pollard back in a role like he used to have when Ezekiel Elliott was the lead back for Dallas, or he could be the 1A and they could bring in a 1B. So the Cowboys, according to Saad Youssef, who covers the Cowboys for The Athletic, he thinks the Cowboys are not going to get in the bidding war if somebody else is interested in Pollard. Pollard right now, Ferrell, if I look at the Never-Too-Early Best Ball Tournament ADP data, Pollard is running back 20 at the 6'10". He is going behind Spears, Stevenson, and Jones. He's going ahead of David Montgomery, James Conner, and Joe Mixon. 6'10", Tony Pollard. I drafted him in the KFFSC draft that I was in on Saturday night, roughly in the 5th or 6th round. I feel pretty good about it. Do you feel good about Tony Pollard in the late 6th?
Yes, he doesn't have to be the lead back to have numbers, although he will be the number 1 contributing back. What does that mean? He could have a Bijan Robinson type play on the field. It's 60 to 70% of the plays. But look, he wasn't healthy either. You've covered that. And, Ezekiel Elliott, you've already used that name twice here in a podcast. We were just 20 minutes in, and you brought up Ezekiel Elliott twice. Dave Turk now he's probably turning down the volume, because he really does love us. He'll watch the show and not listen to it. But look, Pollard, Stevenson in that neighborhood, if you're at the end of the draft and you can You can put them up and stack them side by side at the 12th position. Man, what a wonderful situation you are if you went 0 running back. If I told you you got all those receivers and you pick a quality tight end, go ahead and get your quarterback. Stevenson and Pollard will be there waiting for you. That should bring a smile to your face.
It should. And I'll tell you what else is going to bring a smile to my face is our guest, which we're going to bring in right now. He placed high in the 2023 Never-Too-Early Best Ball Tournament in the FFPC. He finished 14th place overall in it. He's here to talk about not only that finish, but what he's doing in his 2024 drafts as well. Please welcome in Rick Brinson. Rick, welcome into the show, man. Thanks for joining us.
No, thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate it.
So it's exciting. It's exciting to have you on. The first question I want to ask you right off the bat, and this is something that I think I should ask of everybody drafting at this time of year. What is it about drafting in January and February that has you so compelled that you like it so much?
Well, I think it gives me a jump on my competition. The rest of the people that are drafting right now should be serious about this, so I'm getting an idea of what they're thinking early. And I can get some mistakes out of the way early also.
Rick, when you are not finishing near the top of the leaderboard in these FFPC leagues and tournaments, tell the listeners and the viewers, quite frankly, what you're doing for a living.
Well, I've been working since 1989 with my brother in a restaurant sports bar that we put in together in Austin. My role now is listed as a consultant. And basically 7 days a week, I do light maintenance before anybody else is there. and primarily, I'm a computer salesperson, a performance consultant for Box Technologies, and that's BOXX. And you probably haven't heard of us because we build computers for specific applications and specific industries.
We have a lot of players, not only in the FFPC, but the KFFSC. In Austin and in the surrounding area in Texas. Do you want to give a shout out to the sports bar that you helped?
I'd love to. It's the Aussie's Volley Beach Grill and Bar.
Oh, that's a lot going on there.
Yeah, it's we've got 2 regulation sand volleyball courts out back that are so perfect that the AVP Tour uses them when they come to Austin for play-in. There'll be a whole day of play-ins if they have play-ins.
That's fantastic. I'm looking at it right now. God, the photos on this look awesome. But, quite frankly, I'm coming from a northeast Wisconsin where our volleyball courts are covered in snow 11 and a half months out of the year, Rick. So it's a little bit different up here.
We're still playing right now. There's a tournament
Good for
Sunday.
You. Yeah, my wife would love it. She loves beach volleyball, sand volleyball. She's a big fan. We'll have to get down to Austin.
And then on what we call West 6th Street, is where some great sports bars are. Little Woodrow's, the Star Bar, the Key Bar, Yard and Parlor.
Yeah, we're going to walk past them on our way to Aussie's. We're going to just look at that joint. We're on our way to Aussie's.
It's a real nice loop, which I make on a regular basis, sometimes on a bicycle, sometimes on foot.
Right.
Rick, you got a lot going on, buddy. I'm telling you. What happens at Aussie's during the South by Southwest Music Festival?
It depends. If we become a venue, we shut the volleyball down and build a stage in the sand. We haven't done that in about 6 years. So we'll maybe have. Pardon? Yeah, and then sometimes we have a band in the front parking lot. But there's so much going on, and basically we just rack it up from all the people walking from the hotels and from Auditorium Shores, which is just a stone's throw away. That basically we just prepare for one of the busiest times of the year and enjoy it I just enjoy South by Southwest as a music fan.
Yeah, you might just have to take a little time off work and just, look the other way then.
A lot of time off work.
Do you know Ray Sagern? Ray Sagern, a great player, great fantasy player from Austin. We'll have to get you guys together. And I got one more. Balky, we've been using the lead-in song for the show, Pressure from the Quiet Hollers for all these years. They have another Shadwick wrote another song with the line in it, I got drunk in a bar in Austin. We'll have to see if that was Aussie's. You never know. That might have been that might have been the motivation. Now, Rick, I got to look. we're through talking about your good times you have down in Texas, although we look forward to joining you real soon. I don't know about a certain player to the north of Louisville, Kentucky, playing for the Cincinnati Bengals. It's really strange because he's never rostered on any of my teams, because when he's drafted, all the players around him intrigue me much, much more. And you drafted T. Higgins, a player who's coming off a year. We talked about some players, Stevenson, Pollard, less than expectations. T. Higgins, 11 games last year, 42 catches. He had spike games. He had 3 good games. And in those 3 good games last year, one of them against Baltimore, as I recall, those 3 games were about 60% of his statistical performance last year. So what takes you to T. Higgins this year?
Healthy Burrows at quarterback. He proved himself. If he stays there, I think he has a much, much bigger role in the offense. And if he doesn't go there, he could be the missing link in Kansas City or many other places where he could either be a 1A or the 1.
I saw a blurb the other day that Kansas City would be bringing Tyler Boyd in. And, that was Tyler Boyd catches all the passes, which would be refreshing in Kansas City. But anyway, that gets us off the point. I guess the one thing I like about T. Higgins is he's 25 years old. So he's been contributing a while, 25 years old. I'm going to have to reconsider this, but I would have to draft a bunch of guys that think like me, where he slides down. I think everybody always drafts him 2 rounds ahead.
And the thing is he's wide receiver 26, 4'11" in the Never-Too-Early best ball tournament. But like we always reference the ADP. The ADP is so fluid this time of year. And the fact that we think he's going to be back in Cincinnati, but there's a non-zero chance that Cincinnati doesn't franchise him. It's going to cost them over $20 million to do it. So I can see them letting him go. But to your point, Rick, like whoever signs him, he's going to be the number 1 guy, and he's going to be heavily targeted. There is still a significant amount of upside with T. Higgins, and to pick him earlier, I think we can get on board with that. Speaking of picking players earlier, Rachaad White, you took him at the 6'11" last year, about a half round ahead of his ADP, where he was going in the Never-Too-Early tournament. What did you specifically like about him to get you on board with White with the Buccaneers last year? And then second part of the question, he's going at the 310 this year, about 3 rounds earlier than he normally goes. Would you be on board with that ADP for Rachaad White in 2024?
I would. And I became enamored with him because I played college fantasy football. And I think that gives me a real leg up on a lot of people, because it's a real competitive league, and it's really brutal with extra bye weeks and everything else. And so I've got him in 2 keeper leagues and 2 dynasty leagues. I went all out for him his rookie year.
I love that. Did you, deep in the heart of Texas, Balky? See, they do things differently down there. Playing
everything's bigger.
A little college fantasy football while he's building the boxes and making sure the sand's in the right places. Just got a lot going on down in Houston. Nico Collins got a lot going on. If there was ever a player that I lined up to get on all my teams last year because I thought that the light switch was going to come on for him, and man, did it ever come on. And when people say, well, he wouldn't have done as well if Tank Dell hadn't been hurt, and I want to hit him because I don't think double-digit targets in 4 games, 9 targets in 2 other games, consistently successful. I see it even becoming better. I think everyone else does too. Here at the KFFSC Super Sunday Draft, where we had 96 teams drafting, not best ball, these are managed teams. Nico Collins regularly in the second round. I think that's just what's happening in the Never-Too-Earlys. And I'm going to say something. I think he's still a bargain there. What do you think?
Oh, yeah, I think so.
There you go. That's an endorsement. Was he on one of your college fantasy?
No, he kicked my ass.
Yeah, see, there you go. There you go.
So Rick, how high is too high? Like Nico Collins, 208 right now on average in the FFPC Never-Too-Early tournament. How high is too high for him? Would you take him the early second? Is that too high? Like where would you, he's going off as wide receiver 10 right now, behind DJ Moore, Garrett Wilson, AJ Brown, Puka Nacua, and then obviously the elite guys above that.
I would be watching how everything fell, and I'd be totally prepared to grab him early. He's got a good relationship with his quarterback, and Bobby Trees may not be back. He's making too much money, and Mechie, who knows what he's going to do. So he's the constant. He is he's the one you can really count on.
Mm-hmm.
Do you I guess it sounds like you're not concerned about Houston adding another receiver and maybe not round 1, but like day 2, round 2 or round 3 to go with, and give CJ Stroud not only Collins and Tank Dell, but another elite receiver that, because this is such a deep receiver draft, you're not necessarily concerned with the Texans doing that, it sounds like.
Well, I would not be shocked at all if they took a Texas Longhorn, since there's 2 of them coming out, and it, sells tickets. It's a good PR. And both of them have said they'd like to play there. So I think they'll definitely pick somebody before that draft is over that they think can be an immediate contributor.
It's a curious thing with what I think could affect this team and all these receivers is the tight end. Does Schultz move on? Does Brevin Jordan get the chance, which I think he deserves? And there's 2 tight ends on this team that I absolutely love. My biggest problem would be not trying to draft Nico Collins too early, but drafting everybody else on this team, having a team full of Texans. But Balky, the guys you mentioned, Nacua, you said 3 receivers going in front of him.
Nacua, right. Okay, so obviously the big 5 in drafts this year.
Take them off the board.
Jefferson, Lamb, Hill, Chase, St. Brown. Those are the big 5. But then after that, from basically the 110 on, then you have Nacua, AJ Brown, Garrett Wilson, DJ Moore, and then Nico Collins.
I'll draft Collins in front of all those guys.
Okay, there you go. Ferrell loves his Collins, no question. Shift the focus to the running backs here briefly, Rick. Aaron Jones, and again, I know when you drafted this team, this Never-Too-Early team, the ADP was very fluid, and it's quite frankly, like I said earlier, it's still very fluid. But you drafted him basically about a full round ahead of where he normally goes in the 6th round. Aaron Jones, non-zero chance he is not back with Green Bay. As a Packers fan, as a guy who follows the team very closely, I think there is very little chance that Aaron Jones is on a different team this year. I think he's going to be back with Green Bay. What did you see about Aaron Jones this past year? Because he missed a lot of time with that soft tissue injury. Twice, once in week 1 where he missed all that time, and then he had sort of had like a recurrence of that later in the season. But for the first time in his career, he finished the season with 5 straight 100-plus yard running games. Your thoughts on Aaron Jones and why you liked him a little bit better than consensus so far this season?
Well, I like the running ability, and I think, it looks like maybe they're going to do a better job of keeping all their players healthy. I think that's one of the biggest things people don't think about with these teams is why are so many people getting hurt?
Yep.
But Jordan Love is still a young quarterback as far as playing time, and he'll check down faster than some of the other guys will. And he has a lot of young receivers, so he's got more experience catching the ball from Aaron Jones in a way than he does his starting 3 wide receivers. So I think Jones is going to be really, really busy, and A.J. Dillon does it to me, he's not a threat to Aaron Jones's playing time.
Only when the ball's near the goal line.
Yeah, that's true.
Because it's a significant threat. Oh, hell, let's go. Oh, man. Who's the best bartender at Aussie's?
Oh, that would be Katie.
Katie. Why? We like Katie. We like all Katies. Never met a Katie I didn't like. Okay, good. So let me ask you about this player. And he's a favorite of mine. And you drafted him early. And I thought, well, because his name here during our drafts, it came off the board every draft. That is Trey Palmer. And I thought, when I saw that you drafted him several rounds ahead of what the Mojo tells us is his ADP in the sixth. I thought, well, is that right? And I looked at what we did here, and 15th, 16th round for Trey Palmer. I remember when he transferred. He was a player at LSU that they couldn't get on the field, wouldn't throw the ball. He goes to Nebraska, and he runs past everybody. Is kind of like, it looks like Forrest Gump up there. But then they say he can't run routes. He has route running issues, and that's what labeled him into the late rounds of the draft. 39 catches this year. And I figure at a guy, he's only 23 years old. You take a guy like this, you put him with those two receivers in Evans and Godwin, you teach him the offense. And they put the ball in his hands on those Baker Mayfield flanker screens a little bit. But all in all, I saw what I needed to see to unlock this player and say, I'm going to, this is my player that's going to break loose, that's going to get to 70 catches, that's going, even if no one moves out of Tampa, he has the potential to improve his play. Is that your thoughts on this player, or did you just hit the wrong Palmer earlier in the draft? Are you trying to get
No.
What's your thoughts?
I get confused I can confuse him with Josh pretty easy. Well, everything you said is exactly what I was thinking, except one extra thing. Tom Brady liked him his rookie year. Okay. And Brady doesn't tolerate, slackers or people who can't run a route, who can't deliver. When Brady throws the ball and you're there and you catch it, I mean, everybody should pay attention. And then he clicked with Mayfield, and hopefully Baker's back. And so I've got, if I made a list of number 3 receivers on different teams, and I'd say who's reliable, who's some of the most reliable number 3 receivers, I got to put him up there real high.
I like that. I like that thought process. Of course, Brady liked Scotty Miller too, but we won't hold that against him. I don't think we should hold things against Brady.
He was great at the end of the first half of the NFC Championship at Lambeau Field. Fantastic. That game was fantastic for Scotty Miller. Outside of that, I don't know. And the great part about Ian Rappaport actually reported that the Buccaneers have the inside track to re-sign Baker Mayfield. I saw a blurb before we went on the air tonight that it sounds like in the neighborhood of 3 years, $75 million for Mayfield. Nice. And he should be back in Tampa. And if that happens, it's probably, as you said, Rick, good news for Trey Palmer. One of the other things I want to center on, and this gets into a drafting philosophy question here. You took Lamar Jackson in the 3rd round of this Never-Too-Early tournament for 2024. But after you took Lamar Jackson, you still added on 3 additional quarterbacks. And I'm kind of curious as the thought process on why, because a lot of people would draft Lamar Jackson, they take 1, maybe 2 more, but 3 is kind of unprecedented. Your thoughts on why you decided to go with 4 total quarterbacks, including Lamar Jackson?
Well, he runs a lot. If he gets hurt, I got to have somebody that's going to be an every game starter for his team. Mm-hmm. And when I picked up Jones from the Giants, there wasn't a whole lot of other potential every down starters, available. And then I got a little crazy and thought, let's grab a couple of potential rookies that I think will do well. And I really like the kid from Michigan, and then the other kid, May. So I'll give them a chance to do something, because in best ball sometimes they're really valuable because of that 1 week when they go off.
Yeah,
Drake May, quarterback 24. In the end of the 13th round, and then J.J. McCarthy, quarterback 36 at the middle of the 19th round, so basically free. And again, we've seen in some of these best ball tournaments, like you can get these free rookies, especially January, February, where it seems like, oh, what are you doing here? And then it turns out to be a big payday for whoever drafts them at this point. And McCarthy and May both represent the opportunities for some serious returns on those draft picks. Ferrell, go ahead with some more rookie talk here.
Well, yeah, in addition to those quarterbacks, do you have the same affinity for other rookies at wide receiver, which I think the class is very good, although not very deep? Do you like the running backs? There seems to be one tight end that's separated from all the rest. What other rookies did you want to talk about?
Well, I like the two rookie receivers, Worthy and the other guy from Texas, a lot. You know, I mean, I got to see them a little more than other ones, but I had a championship college league team, and I had Adunza, and I had Mitchell from Texas, and I had one more killer receiver. And so, you know, they do good for me, and I watch them for a whole season or a few seasons in college, and I really like Rome Adunza. I mean, I think that he's kind of – we're all talking about Marvin Jr. and about the two kids from LSU. And then I'll tell you who I also like. I like Ricky Pearsall. Just, you know, it seems like he just doesn't miss. He runs perfect routes, and he's not afraid to go over the middle, runs into people. I don't know. He can't think who it is he reminds me of. Maybe he reminds me of the little guys that always played for the Patriots, like Edelman, that were just tough as nails.
Yeah, you love a player like that. And, you know, based on the geographical locations of some of these players, you spent a lot of late Saturday nights watching football, didn't you? There's a lot of West Coasters in here that you're eyeballing pretty good here. Man, based on the college football schedules, setting your lineup for college football fantasy must be a wild experience. That's something. I'm waiting for someone to warm up to Jamari Thrash from University of Louisville. He had a great Senior Bowl, and nobody's talking about him. And I think he's a third round receiver that'll get in there. So that's one I'm going to add to you, to your list that I want you to follow. And
I will.
I'd like to have your opinion about it.
Ferrell, last night when I was doing the High Stakes Fantasy Football Show on the Better Sports Network, I had Todd Burrows, Best Ball NFL on the X, and I was trying to sell him on Jamari Thrash, and he's like, "Yeah, it's Jamari Thrash. What? Why are you so integrated?" And I said, "Well, you know, Ferrell's a big fan of Jamari Thrash." And then Todd right away said, "So where did this Jamari Thrash go to school? Was this a high school in Kentucky?" I said, "Well, he was at Louisville this past year." And Todd's like, "Oh, that explains it." But I think you're onto something with Jamari.
Todd might have to. Some of that commentary is putting Todd in a bad spot. You know, please stop too soon was what that should come out. All of us should recognize, but Todd shouldn't make that commentary, especially if he was paying attention at the Senior Bowl, because everyone who was there fell in love with Thrash.
Yeah, Thrash was one of the winners from the Senior Bowl, no question there whatsoever. A couple of questions via email here for you tonight, Rick. Marty in Bell Vernon, Pennsylvania writes, "Hey, Rick, how convinced are you that Kyren Williams will remain the bell cow for the Rams in 2024? Thanks so much." And thank you, Marty, for the email in Bell Vernon, Pennsylvania. I'm going to be honest with you, Rick. This is something I've been battling with, because I know what the Rams did in their backfield prior to the start of the 2023 season. And I am not convinced that they would not add some more bodies, not so much to supplant Kyren Williams, not so much to take his job from him. But the fact is, when you look at where Kyren Williams is going in the Never-Too-Early tournament right now, Kyren Williams, by the way, as I look at the mojo on him, he is going off as running back 5 at the 201. That is very rich to me, Rick, when you're talking about a guy that still has a non-zero chance, and maybe more than a non-zero chance, of facing some competition on his own team in that backfield in 2024. Can you kind of give us the lay of the land with Kyren Williams in the Rams backfield this season?
I think an additional back in the backfield would be good for him with a long season and injuries to take a little load off of him. But I think the way the coaches think there, at least what it looks like to me, is he's the number one back. It's his job to lose. So someone would have to really come out and be exceptional to suddenly get all the carries and he be the second guy. So barring injuries, I'm comfortable.
So even sorry, Ferrell, just even at the end of the first round, even at the start of the second round, you're still comfortable with that ADP for Williams, right?
But I mean, but I wouldn't pick him over if for some strange reason Bijan or Brees Hall or someone else was still there. I'm not putting him in front of them, and I don't think I'd take him over White at Tampa Bay.
Okay.
Brees Hall is going off number 2, I do believe, in most of
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he very well could be. I'm looking at the mojo for. I think this is the last 7 days. This is from January 18th to February 29th, which hasn't happened yet. Kyron Williams, running back 5, 201. He is going behind McCaffrey, Hall, Robinson, and Gibbs, but he is going ahead of Rashad White. So I think that's interesting. Ferrell, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I wanted to see if Rick felt the same way. I feel like during the show that you have declared war against the starting running backs across the league. There's not one anywhere that's good enough, that's not going to be challenged, that's not going to look to be replaced, and this is going to be played less, not more. So, it's good. You're made to draft in Kentucky, Balky, and so are you, Rick. We got to get you up here. But you're made to draft in Kentucky where you can go 5 receivers to start the draft.
Which has been done numerous times over the years to some success.
I've heard that.
Let's go out to the YouTube chat here. Dominic Gazzetti, one of our number 1 fans here. He wants to know how you feel about this, Rick. Is when it comes down to Jahmyr Gibbs or Kyron Williams, which one you're picking? Now, Gibbs is going at the 110. Kyron Williams is going at the 201, excuse me. Very, very close in ADP. Would you take Kyron Williams over Jahmyr Gibbs, who we know is going to be facing direct competition for goal line carries, for inside the 5 carries, and just inside the tackle carries with David Montgomery?
I think I would take Gibbs at this time right now. But now if this is the last week of preseason, I might already have changed my mind.
And I think with Gibbs versus Kyron Williams, so I still have the same trepidation with Gibbs because he should touch the ball less than Kyron Williams this year, but he touched the ball less last year with David Montgomery. And now you see how FFPC players are taking him. They're still taking him in the first round. They're still taking him on average as the 4th running back off the board, sometimes the 3rd running back off the board. Gibbs is going to be fascinating. I continue to think Kyron Williams is going to be fascinating as we get deeper into draft season as well. One more email here for you, Rick. It's from Dan in Redding, California. How's it going, Rick? How much of an improvement are we going to see from Zay Flowers this season? So Zay Flowers, one of the best rookie receivers last year, and a guy that exceeded a lot of people's expectations. He is now going in the Never-Too-Early tournament as wide receiver 28 at the 502, behind Higgins, behind London, but ahead of Malik Neighbors, ahead of Amari Cooper. Zay Flowers, 502. Rick, what kind of step forward are you expecting to see from Flowers in Baltimore this season?
Huge. I took him over Jordan Addison and the kid from Ohio State that went to Seattle in a dynasty league with my very first pick last year, and caught a lot of flack for not taking Addison. And I'm like, sorry guys, we'll see what happens his sophomore year. And I wasn't disappointed with how he performed this year. I think he's going to kill it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And when you look at his target share, and he did all of that with 5 and 6 targets a game. What happens if they actually decide to try to get the ball to him?
Yeah, oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
It's a great point, Ferrell. I am out of emails for Rick tonight. So without further ado, we have one final question for him.
Rick, this is an important question that we ask of every guest on the show. And and I'm anxious to hear your answer, because it seems like you share something in common with Balky and myself. We can find something we love about every player.
Yeah.
And I always think you're a better fantasy player if you have less players that you won't draft. So if you have to search for an answer of the guy that you do not like and do not want, it's always a good sign. And if it's most difficult to answer who are you going to roll with, who do you love? Dominic's asking a question about Pittman. Pittman was a player last year when he was drafted at my table. I would think that someone it was just a terrible situation that someone actually took a player that belonged to me. Who is that guy for you?
That I would not take?
That your first guy is would not take. Second guy is your Pittman, a guy that you want on every team.
Well, right. I would not take Alvin Kamara.
Okay.
I just never liked him, and then I don't like him as a person. And you're not supposed to let that really interfere. But it
is your team. You got to draft guys you want to cheer for.
And then there's a player I can get on every team. It's Tyreek Hill.
how sweet it is.
There are people, and let's unpack the Tyreek Hill thing real quick here, Rick. There are people saying that they're worried about the soft tissue stuff and the fact that Tyreek Hill is a little bit older than Jefferson, Lamb, Jamar Chase, the guys he's going around. This is not a concern for you. Why is that overblown in your opinion?
I just got to see it happen to believe it. I've got to think that he knows that. He knows his body, and he wants the record that he almost got. He's very vain and proud, and he wants to go out big. And so if that means taking better care of himself, let's hope he understands that.
His quarterback leans on him, relies on him, and so does his entire offensive coordinator, the offensive side of the ball. If you are 3rd and 14 and Tyreek Hill's on the field, you're not in a desperate strait.
The last thing I will ask you here, and this was the question I flashed on the screen from Dom Gazzetti. Pittman is going ahead of Zay Flowers right now in drafts, Rick, in the Never-Too-Early drafts. But we know you like Flowers quite a bit. Would you be taking Flowers over Pittman this year?
I would right now because of the quarterback situation, and because if Pittman ended up somewhere else, but before I had a draft, that would make a huge difference. Because he's caught lots of passes, but he's been kind of touchdown short.
Yeah, that is totally correct with that. And I know, Ferrell, you love Michael. I know you like Zay Flowers, but you love yourself some Michael Pittman, right?
Well, no, we're going to have to let Pittman go if he's going in that 3rd round, unless it's just a perfect fit. Flowers is still the guy with the ceiling. Of course, we love Mike when he's 7th and 8th round pick when everybody didn't care for him. And they saw him as a 70-catch receiver. He's always going to be a 100-catch receiver. But so are some of the guys that are around him in the 3rd round. So you don't have to chase to get him. But now, yes, it's going to be a real treat to see what he can accomplish with Anthony Richardson as the quarterback. Anthony Richardson will stretch the play, have better sight lines to the end zone, giving Pittman more time to get open, and risking more accurate passes that Pittman can high point the ball and win at. So I like Pittman in the end zone much better this coming year with the young quarterback.
You like Pittman. We both like the fact that Rick Brinson, the 14th place overall finisher in the Never-Too-Early FFPC Best Ball Tournament this past year, was able to come on and drop some knowledge on us tonight. Rick, all the best wishes for you in 2024 as far as drafting season goes. We thank you for making us a part of your Friday night festivities. And speaking of festivities, excuse me, the next time Ferrell and I are in Austin, we're hitting up Aussie's Grill and Beach Bar for sure, playing a little volleyball, having some cocktails. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Well,
I'm spiritually there now.
If you've got time, I can take you on the bar crawl of your life.
Oh my goodness, a bar crawl in Austin, I'm in. Like this would be fantastic. We're gonna have to plan this out. Rick, good luck this season. Thank you for making us a part of your evening and your weekend. Enjoy drafting season. We'll catch up again soon.
Thanks for having me.
You got it. Rick Brinson, ladies and gentlemen, the 14th place finisher in the 2023 FFPC Never-Too-Early Best Ball Tournament, joining us on the program tonight. Love all the insight that he was able to give us tonight, Ferrell, and a good guy. And now we have an Austin vacation plan for the two of us.
Yeah, all my vacations are working vacations, Balky, but I would love to do that.
Yes.
And I'm going to shout out to Rick. Also, I'm hoping he's still in the room. With me, our KFFSC Super Sunday Sweet 16 has one online division, and we're down to 2 spots left, and there's nothing better than having a Texan in there. It's Sunday night at 8:30. If anyone wants to join it, we would love to have you from one of the 19 states that you can still join.
Exactly. There you go. Ferrell, let's get to how much time do we have left? We got a couple of minutes. We might be able to get through 2 of these emails here. I'm going to go to a guy who played in the Super Bowl and then was kind of in the news after this, with one of his friends or brothers talking about how he's not going to be back with the 49ers next year, and then scrubbing his social media with 49ers or of any 49ers, something. That's Brandon Ayuk. Tom in Altamonte Springs, Florida, he writes, is Brandon Ayuk going to be back in San Francisco? Where do I draft him? That is Tom in Altamonte Springs, Florida. Right now, Brandon Ayuk Ferrell in the Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament ADP. Wide receiver 15 at the 303. Number one, where do you expect him to play next season? Number two, when you weigh the risk of him playing elsewhere other than San Francisco, is that 303 still a spot that you want to be in business with Brandon Ayuk?
He's one of the best players in the league, and I think there's probably better landing spots for him than San Francisco. But San Francisco is successful with the ball. They move the ball up and down the field. Now, if he's frustrated about his Super Bowl experience, I thought he had a pretty good game, but he ran into Trent McDuffie, who had perhaps one of the best games as a corner that I've seen in years. And so he better stay out of the AFC West because he'll have Trent McDuffie twice a year. And the defensive coordinator, you talk about these coaches that have 2 weeks to get ready for a team, and what a great job that Spagnuolo did to get this defense ready, because the 49ers thought they were looking at one thing, ended up looking at another. Were very, very confused. They looked sloppy doing it. Ayuk didn't catch any balls. How many balls did tight end catch?
There wasn't very many.
I think it was one. It was one. Debo Samuel, it was a bad, he had some injury issues. Perhaps it was a hamstring. Whatever it was McDuffie, and to a lesser degree, but still a contributing degree, Snead. And, the defensive line in their rotation. They rotate 6 guys, and they all played well. Dominic's already dug it up, and he's got the answer right there.
Yeah, it was, and I didn't think it was Ayuk posting it on social media. He kind of walked it back a little bit when somebody asked him about it, but it sounded like it was, like I said, like a friend of Ayuk or a relation saying that, oh, this is why we're not going to be in San Francisco next year. I always take that with a grain of salt.
And the social media is very confusing. I'm sending the stuff to wrong people all the time, and it's just, but with friends like this, Ayuk, I don't think you need many enemies.
The other thing I'll bring up from the Super Bowl, and this will be our last email of the night, Travis Kelce, Ferrell. I had talked to you on this show about how I was ready to move on from him after what I saw at the end of the regular season in 2023. And then the playoffs started, and this guy looked like he has not only not lost a step, but he looks as good as ever. When you factor that in, and the email that we have tonight about Travis Kelce, hey guys, has Travis Kelce earned more of our trust going into 2024? Thanks. That's Doug in Golden Valley, Minnesota. And definitely on my end, I was wrong about him. The death of Travis Kelce from fantasy purposes is definitely over-exaggerated. And Travis Kelce is now, for the first time in forever, not going off right now as the number one tight end. He's going as the number 2 tight end behind Sam Laporta. Travis Kelce, a guy who was going as the 101 in many fantasy pros drafts and main event drafts last year, has fallen, Ferrell, all the way to 211. In fact, he has gone as late as the 311 in a couple of Never Too Early drafts.
What?
So, yeah, exactly. This is insane value for Travis Kelce, and you're in a tight end premium league. Man, I think this is something you got to hop all over. I love Kelce at the end of the second round.
Well, the one I'm in, that's where I took him. I had the second pick, so that would have been at the end of the second round. Balky, I think your intermittent dissatisfaction with Kelce was a degenerative quality of the fact that you're hanging out with a bad crowd during the week. Yeah. And then as you approach the weekend, and you talk to guys like Mr. Brinson, you get back, when our regulars come in and chat with us, you get back to where you need to be. You're known by the company you keep. And and Travis Kelce's known by the company he keeps. He's got the best quarterback in the game. He's got a great offensive mind running the offense there in the head coach and the OC. Rashee Rice developed himself as one of the better receivers in the game. And then Pacheco, the running back, is, just every time you watch him run, it's just fantastic to watch him. And, he had the exchange with the coach during the game. And I'm not for sure, but I think that I can imagine that during the week, he was promised that he would not come out in any goal line situations. And then he looks up and the backup Noah Gray is in the huddle. So you can't just say, well, go. You got to get off the field or you'll have a time violation. And then the guy that Gray is to block knocks the ball out of Pacheco's hands. And sure, it's that desire to be, he's not back there rolling his eyes. He's confronting the coach. His legacy in this game is important to him. And just like his brother, they'll have to bring him out of football screaming and dragging his feet. And so this is the kind of player he is. And if you get him at 80%, you've got 80%, you've got some percentage more than what you've got from all the other tight ends.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing to look at. Like, you got to understand, and I come back to this. Has Travis Kelce done so little in 2023 that he has fallen nearly 2 full rounds? I don't think so. So I am definitely on board with taking Travis Kelce. He's got maybe the greatest quarterback we've ever seen throwing to him. Still no answers at wide receiver, and he's won a Super Bowl the last 2 years, being the number one target there. I think that continues going forward. I think we're going to continue to do this show going forward, including next Friday, when we will welcome back the definitive commissioner of fantasy football, Ferrell Elliott, KFFSC.com, at jferrellelliott on the X. And, of course, get in that Sweet 16 that is available. Sunday night draft. What did you say? 2 spots left in that?
2 spots left in that. You're not doing anything Sunday night, are you?
Yeah, no, I should actually hop in. I should actually hop in that draft. That I like Daytona 500 is the only thing I'm watching on Sunday, and that'll be long over with. Be fired at 8:30 Eastern.
If Rick gets in there, you might have second thoughts. But
I don't want to see him next to me. That's for sure.
Yeah, I do. If I didn't get to ask Rick if he comes to Planet Hollywood, but quite honestly, I encourage all the players to come in.
Yeah.
Planet Hollywood. I tell Rick that's going to be a big weekend in Austin. He just might want to stay there.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
It could be a big weekend in Austin. So,
it's gonna be a big weekend for sure.
We'll send him to draft boards.
Right? Yeah, yes, we will. And Ferrell, I will send you the instructions next week on who we're going to have as a guest, which I'll tell everybody at the end of the show. He was in the chat room tonight. We'll talk about that later on. Enjoy your weekend, dude. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
That is Ferrell Elliott, the definitive commissioner of fantasy football. KFFSC.com is where to go and play in the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship, including that 8:30 p.m. Sunday night draft, which is less than 48 hours away. Sign up now. I might be seeing you in there as well. I want to thank not only Ferrell Elliott, I want to thank our guest tonight, Rick Brinson, the 14th place finisher in the FFPC Never-Too-Early Best Ball Tournament. I want to thank the FFPC, Rob, Bryce, and, of course, each and every one of you. We will be back at 10 o'clock next Friday. We are going to have, and there's no good way to say this because this dude did a ton this year, 6th place in the FFPC Best Ball Tournament, 2nd place in the world famous FFPC Playoff Challenge, and then 1st and 2nd place in the $35 FFPC Playoff Challenge this year. Cullen Hoffman, a winner of $260,000. He is going to be our guest next week. So much stuff to talk about with him, not only with the playoff challenge, but with best ball as well. So he will be joining us next Friday night. Watch last night's High Stakes Fantasy Football Show on the Better Sports Network on any of the FFPC social media channels. We had Todd Burrows last night from the Run to Daylight podcast and, of course, Sharp Football Analysis. We'll be on live, just confirmed, this Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Dynasty Fantasy Football Factory and Dynasty Football Maven, Shane Hallam. All your Debbie questions, Dynasty questions, draft questions, Triple D, Dynasty, Debbie, draft. He knows it all. Shane P. Hallam will be my guest co-host, 7 o'clock on Thursday. That's going to be a lot of fun. The 2024 Fantasy Pros Championship will launch Tuesday, February 20th. That's this upcoming Tuesday. A $1 million grand prize in a $6 million prize pool. myffpc.com is where to go to that. That's also the same place you want to go, myffpc.com, to play in the Never-Too-Early Best Ball tournaments. They will run all the way up until the start of the NFL draft. No kickers, no defenses, 20-round draft. Best ball slim rules, 14-week regular season. We will have playoffs in weeks 15 through 17, and then a champion crowned after that. Drafts are available with a 30-second, 60-second, 2-hour, and 6-hour clock. Make sure you are popping in there to take advantage of winning a $25,000 grand prize at just a $125 entry fee, or a $10,000 grand prize with a $35 entry fee as well. myffpc.com is where to go for that, as well to pick up some Dynasty Orphan teams. We have sold a ton of Dynasty Orphan teams at really, really good prices. There still remain plenty of Dynasty Orphans out there at really, really good prices. Register now, get those Dynasty Orphans on your team, and play fantasy football 365 days a year. myffpc.com, myffpc.com. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment on this video, share it with your friends, share it with your enemies, and hit that notification bell so you know every time we go live, which will once again be Thursday night, 7 o'clock, myself and Shane Hallam on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Show. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. I hope the NFL season in 2023 was great for you. 2024 season is just beginning at the FFPC. Quite frankly, some would say we're already in full swing. So get your drafting in now. Your weekend officially starts now.
This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com. It was broadcast live and was watched around the world. Balky and Ferrell will be back next week with more analysis, more interviews, and more advice from guests much smarter than they are. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk with you again next week.
It's rare that we have this much action going on because we've never started the Fantasy Pros Championship this early, ladies and gentlemen, but we do have it going on. February 20th will be the kickoff. We have slow drafts going on. I think we have multiple slow drafts filled that will start February 20th as well. No excuse. You don't have to wait. If you want to build your $1 million juggernaut, it starts prior to the calendar turning to March. It's going to be a lot of fun. Fantasy Pros Championship, Never-Too-Early best ball tournaments. We got 2 of them, as well as the FFPC Dynasty Orphans. Plenty of those going on as well. myffpc.com. That's where you want to go this weekend. I enjoy drafting fantasy football leagues. And of course, KFFSC.com is where you can draft as well. Check that out. We will talk with you again a week from today. Thanks for watching, everybody.